Everyone, welcome back to Unraveling Politics, a weekly political analysis show. We have a bunch of stuff to get into this week, so we'll get right into it. We are now a matter of hours away from the federal government shutdown that looks like is on the horizon. This time looks a little bit different. The roles have been reversed from the 2013 and even the 2018 to 2019 shutdown. If you're interested in learning more about those, I could always do those separately. Usually it's the Republicans that try to extract concessions from the Democrats. This time it's the other way around. Republicans want to extend government funding at current levels for just another 7 weeks, and Democrats want to extend funding for just 4 weeks, as well as adding Affordable Care Act subsidies and other things. In 2013, for example, Republicans pushed for Obamacare cuts and shut down the government for 17 days, and they failed, and then they backed off. And I'm thinking the same thing might happen here. The president suggested that Republicans not even consult Democrats. That's kind of where we were the week before last, and things have changed a little bit, and I'll explain that in a moment. This is a pretty bad move, considering their votes are required, the votes of Democrats. House and Senate Democrats are firm in their opposition. I think that might change. That's a change from a couple of months ago, from the same situation happened, except the Democrats caved. Both sides, as you expect, are blaming the other. And they did say last week, I did say this last week, that Republicans had little incentive to work with the Democrats, and Democrats have little incentive to keep the government open, which is a recipe for a government shutdown. Democrats want to meet with Trump. At first, Trump rejected the idea, and now he's going to meet them on Monday, which is today. I imagine not much is going to change at this meeting. There could be, I'm recording this on Sunday, there could be a miraculous deal. I don't think that will happen, but we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I do believe we are headed for a shutdown. I've said that already, because both sides are uncompromising here. Someone has to give, or they both have to give. So what happens if there's a government shutdown? Well, it depends on if it will be a full or a partial government shutdown. This will be a partial shutdown, which means only some government departments will be affected. This means non-essential operations are going to cease, and essential workers will be forced to work without pay. So this would be members of the military and the TSA, for example. However, things are a little bit different now, and I'll explain that in a moment. I'm not sure which departments are going to be paid or not. It remains to be seen. I have not been able to find any information on the internet. Usually I'm able to, but I have not been able to this time. The IRS will struggle to issue tax refunds. If it's long-term SNAP payments will not go out, WIC might be cut. National parks and monuments won't have trash collection. Potentially 1 million more people will go without pay. The Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. is going to close, and travelers will face longer lines because TSA agents might stop showing up to work because they're not going to be paid. Inspections at the Environmental Protection Agency might stop, and Medicare applicants could be ignored until the shutdown ends, and so much more. Good news is the post office will continue to operate because they still use their own revenues, and Social Security and Medicare payments will continue to go out. Customer service for Social Security, however, might be affected, and replacing Medicare cards and things like that might not be happening during the shutdown. If those were affected, the programs themselves, that would be a truly catastrophic situation, but thankfully that is automatically approved. This time, though, normally what happens is the White House will They will just not pay anybody because they don't have the money to pay them, and then they'll pay them back afterward. This time that might not happen. The White House has stepped up its game, and the Office of Management and Budget, they're the one that run the federal government budget, they stated that they would fire all employees who are non-essential, which these people who, instead of going without pay, they'll just be dismissed. And as I said, this time they might be fired, and we'll have to wait and see if they actually go through on that thread. I think they would. This would essentially be rapidly reducing the size of the federal government. The big political implication for this will be who gets the blame from the public for the shutdown. Conventional wisdom is whoever causes the shutdown is blamed. So conventional wisdom would show that Democrats are the ones to blame. However, we don't live in conventional times anymore. So polling actually shows Trump and the Republicans would suffer more. A strength in numbers poll linked below has Republicans being blamed for the shutdown by 11 points more than Democrats if Democrats are blocking for healthcare funds. Healthcare is a big issue for voters, so I believe Democrats fighting the president on this one is a good move for them. And about a third of voters blame both sides, which will likely have no effect. If that's not good enough for you, Gov't did a poll as well and found that Trump and Republicans combined would be blamed by 37% of the electorate for it, Democrats 25%, and if you split Republicans and Trump, It's 25% for Democrats, 26% for everyone, 14% for Republicans, and 23% for Trump. Again, all these polls are linked below. It's a bit of a mixed bag. I would still say these are good numbers for Democrats. YouGov split it up by party, and this is important because I always like to see where independents like myself are. And I would say I blame all sides for this one, although I do support, I think Democrats are doing a good thing here. They need to show some sort of opposition, unlike what they did back in March. Independents blame everyone equally, and Trump more so, but not significantly. I suspect due to our polarized nature, Trump will take a bit of a hit, but it will not be enough to force him to end the shutdown like it was in 2018 to 19. And I say there is a compromise, and Trump either agrees or disagrees with it. More likely he would disagree with it, and let's say this compromise goes through. If Democrats get Republicans to vote for it in the House, that might be the end of Mike Johnson's time as Speaker. And I know for over a year, almost 18 months, I've been calling that it was going to end. I believe it will end eventually. Obviously, I don't know exactly when, but I believe he's going to be brought down due to internal matters. It only takes 9 rebels to bring him down, and I believe there are way more than 9 crazy people who would actually do that. Moving on, in other big news, Trump gave a major speech at Charlie Kirk's memorial service, and there's a few points of the speech that I want to kind of sum up here. And the crowd was about 100,000 people, and it really resembled like a mega church service, if you've ever seen those like televangelists on TV. And the speakers stuck with the message of continuing and expanding the movement. Most of them did, but there's a few flashes of anger, some from the president himself. Stephen Miller, who's the deputy chief of staff, vowed to squash the enemies and prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil. And then you had RFK, who compared Kirk to Jesus Christ, and Don Jr. comparing Charlie Kirk to a little brother of his. So, first of all, it remains clear that this is not going to be going away. As Trump said, he said this at the speech. And so on that terrible day, September 10th, 2025, our greatest evangelist for American liberty became immortal. He's a martyr now for American freedom. I know I speak for everyone here today when I say that none of us will ever forget Charlie Kirk, and neither now will history. And that's the end of the quote there. And for example, there was a Penn State game at Penn State in State College, Pennsylvania, not too far from where I live. Decent drive, but compared to the rest of the country, not too far away. And you could see that Charlie Kirk's shirts were there, his freedom shirts. So definitely he's been embedded into the conservative movement. And I'm concerned that the speech was filled with attacks to the left, and that will no doubt incite more violence, but that is to be expected. Many on the right believe that Charlie Kirk could have been president one day. I'm not entirely sure if I buy that. I'm a little skeptical, but I do believe that people believe it. And Trump also touched on politics, saying Kirk wanted Trump to save Chicago, meaning bring in the National Guard, which hasn't happened yet, but Trump promised it would at some point. And I think one of the most shocking parts of the speech was when Trump talked about autism, announcing there would be a major announcement on autism. And I already covered that. I covered that last week on Friday, so if you're interested, please check that out. We had a special guest on the show, so hopefully you enjoy that if you haven't seen it. Trump was also credited Kirk for helping him pick J.D. Vance to become vice president. So if that is actually true, I'm not entirely sure if that's true. It shows he had a significant implication for the future of the Republican Party. The most memorable part of the speech, as it was reported by many outlets, Trump said that Charlie did not hate his opponents. He wanted what was best for them. And then Trump turned to Erica, who is his wife, and he said, I hate my opponent. I don't want what's best for them. I'm sorry, Erica. Which is, I kind of understand the sentiment. I don't know if I agree with it, but I understand it. When you have somebody try to kill you, it's very hard to also sympathize with them. But at the same time, Jesus forgave his enemies, and that's what Christians are supposed to do. And Trump should do the same, no matter how hard that is. And if anyone out there disagrees with me, remember that Jesus' enemies killed him too. So I expect the conservative movement to be even more energized as we move forward. I don't think that's a very bold prediction. And even Trump and Elon are back together. So if anything, this could be the moment of maximum danger to the left and to our democracy as well. And I don't like, as I've said before, I don't like saying that American democracy is going to end, but that's something that I think if this is the time of maximum danger, if there is one, then this is it. So those are some of my thoughts on that. In other words, in a shocking development, President Trump has said he believes Ukraine can win the war against Russia. This was a shock because he said land swaps would be required to win the war, and he said that even just a month ago, and now there's another Trump U-turn. He didn't just mean win the war, he meant win all of the territory back, including Crimea, which Russia has held for almost 12 years. He even suggested Ukraine could go further than that, whatever that means. There's two options I think that could show the president the path the president is taking. One of them is more optimistic for Ukraine and the other is more cynical, and I'll give you my take after I explain, as always. So the first option is that Trump has had a change of heart, and at first he probably thought that he could get Putin to end the war, but Putin is not really interested, obviously, because he's the one that started it, and the only one who's been interested is Zelensky. Trump also said, to my surprise, that NATO members should shoot down Russian aircraft when they enter NATO airspace, which obviously has the intention to escalate tensions. And I did say that last episode there needs to be a response to Russian incursions. Absolutely, this needs to happen, and I have to agree with Trump on this one. I think a lot of NATO would as well. And where's something about war is when you have somebody who's probing you, it is always cheaper and more effective to act early than to act late. And I hope this Ukraine war has proven that. And hopefully we've learned it by now. I don't think a lot of people have. The second option is more cynical in that he's trying to make it seem like he supports Ukraine, but only if Europe does it. And remember, he posted this on Truth Social. After getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation. Oh, hold on. Let's pause there. He didn't already know what that was. He was trying to end the war, but he didn't know about it. Anyway. And then he continued, after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to win and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. So what did he leave out in that statement? The United States. That's quite interesting. He said Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, can win all of Ukraine back. Then he also said NATO would help. But not only that, he said that Russia was a paper tiger, meaning it has no force to act on its aggressions, and that's clearly not true because Russia invaded Ukraine. He also called for Europe to stop buying Russian oil and apply steep tariffs on countries that buy Russian oil, like China. Totally agree with that one. Trump said at the UN, think of it, they're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one? So the cynical take is that he wants Ukraine to win, but he doesn't want to help make it happen, which is the position I'm basically in. I'm very isolationist. We have a lot of problems here at home, and I prefer to focus on that. He doesn't want to put any work into making this happen, which I don't understand either. I'm skeptical Trump has had a real change of heart. I tend to think that he's leaning toward the second one. I don't think he's as sympathetic to Russia as the liberal media makes him out to be, but I definitely don't think he's a strong defender of Ukraine or Europe either, which frankly is what I'm looking for in a president, someone who doesn't focus on world affairs, and unfortunately that has been the bulk of the last, really, 4 administrations, actually the last, really since the 80s. Before we move on, this was too funny to ignore, Trump has been fixated on Biden using the auto pen, which is basically a motorized way for the president to sign documents. That's not really important here. I don't think there should be an auto pen, but that's not really important. I don't really care about that. I've never even heard about it until this year. And Trump built a walkway at the White House of all the presidents that we've had in the past. I think that's a great idea. I'm surprised we don't already have that. And he included every single president except one, and I'm going to show this on the screen now, an image that was on CNN. And he left out one president. I'll let you think for a moment what that president would be. And it's not Obama. Yep, it was Joe Biden. Instead of putting Joe Biden's face, he put the auto pen signature of Joe Biden, which I totally agree with because Biden was basically absent the whole presidency. He was in Delaware nearly half his presidency, maybe like a quarter to a third, but he was definitely not on the job very often. And here's the picture for your amusement. I saw this on social media, the White House's social media, and I said, there's no way this is real. Like, there's no way. And it was real. Oh boy. By the way, guys, I never use social media to put these videos together. If I see anything on social media, I always go check it with legacy outlets, both conservative and liberal. I'll look at CNN, MSNBC, which they're changing their name, CNN, MSNBC, and things like that, and I'll also look at like the New York Post and Fox News. So I definitely try to get a wide range of news outlets. And it was definitely confirmed by the White House, so this is definitely real. And so I hope that was interesting. And as I said a little week ago, we're going to move on here. As I said a little bit ago, the week before last, there was a special election in Arizona to fill a vacant seat in the House of Representatives. So that brings the total to 214 Democrats and 219 Republicans. Speaker Johnson can lose no more than 2 votes if he wants bills to pass. There will be another election on November 4th to fill another safe Democrat seat, so it will soon be 215 to 219. So you might wonder, what does this special election mean? It's a safe seat, so it couldn't have meant that much. Well, no, that's not true. It could be a sign of what's to come. Democrats have had a double-digit swing in their favor, and it shows that even though their party is unpopular nationally, their base is still turning out to vote for them. This was a heavily Hispanic seat, and it shows that Hispanics might be moving back toward Democrats after they swung massively toward Trump last year. This is a perfect segue into our final topic of the week, and that's the 2 upcoming elections in Virginia and New Jersey. I talked about them before. I'm not going to get too much into it. We're going to talk about it again as we get closer. In Virginia and New Jersey elect governors on off years. They do it in the first year of the new president, or the 5th year of the president's term. And right now in Virginia, the Democrat leads the race for governor by 6.5%, according to Real Clear Politics, which sounds about right. I expect the race to get a little bit tighter as we get closer. But that has not been happening yet. In New Jersey, it is even tight. It's also about 7%, and there's not much polling in New Jersey, so it's kind of hard to say. Same with Virginia. The media has been focusing more on Virginia, but I think New Jersey, the real story is there. Democrats should win both of them easily. And conventional wisdom would show that they would win New Jersey easily and they would struggle in Virginia. It's kind of the other way around now. There was a debate in New Jersey at Rider University, and it shows that this race really is a microcosm of the rest of the country. 2 candidates debated everything from vaccines, trans people, and youth sports, the big beautiful bill, and more. I'm not going to get too much into this because obviously most of you don't live in New Jersey, some of you don't even live in this country. But what I'll say is this remains a national focus campaign. Then Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican, will lose. And going back to the special election last week, Trump only did so well in New Jersey because of his overperformance with Hispanics. If Ciattarelli has a chance of winning, he has to hold on to the Hispanic gains Trump made and even improve on it. Because remember, Trump did not win in New Jersey. He did a good job, but he didn't completely close the gap either. It was still about 5%. And then Ciattarelli almost beat Governor Phil Murphy in 2021. He lost by 3%. And at the same time, a bombshell poll came out from Emerson College. It showed the 2 candidates tied at 43%. Not a lot, not to brag here, but I did predict this was going to happen. The race was going to tighten. I believe it will continue to tighten, and I do think the Democrat still has the edge for now. Their betting markets are showing that showing a 78% chance for the Democrat to win. That has fallen a bit. I believe it was at 87 a week before. Now it's at 78. In sum, I put this race at leans Democrat. If Ciattarelli is going to win, he needs to focus on local issues like Democrat corruption in New Jersey, as well as other state issues. If Kamala Harris had won the last year's election, then I would say this would probably be a much closer race. Ciattarelli can't run on affordability anymore because Trump is putting up tariffs on everything, and that was a good issue when the Republican Party was in opposition. Now they're in charge, and that's a lot harder. In Virginia, Republicans are the incumbents along with the sitting president, so it's logical that they would get soundly beaten. As I said, I do think it's going to get a little bit closer, but I do think the Democrat is going to win in Virginia. Therefore, I have that race at likely Democrat. So that's all for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. We will not be having a special episode this week. Normally we only have, if you're new to this channel, we only have 1 a week. The last 2 weeks were a little bit different. So back to our regularly scheduled programming for the time being. There will be at least 1 more special episode probably in the month of October. But for now, one a week for the next few weeks. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.